I want to go back to Israel. CNN's Nick Robertson is live there. Nick, what are you learning?
Well, we've just learned from the Israeli Defense Force that they have put some troops across the border into Gaza in the past 24 hours. They call it a local, looking for the language here exactly, a local raid. So a limited incursion. A local raid is a language they use to describe the troops that they've sent across into Gaza. It's not clear how many they've sent across. It's not clear yet what their mission was. It's not clear yet if their mission was successful. It's not clear yet if they had any casualties. But this is the first time since the weekend, since this big buildup of forces, that we've heard from the IDF that they have, in fact, sent troops inside the Gaza Strip. This, they say, was over the past 24 hours. The indication seems to be that this was limited. And the indication seems to be that it is over now, that those troops are out, and that would perhaps be within the sort of expected operational parameters for something like this, that the IDF would not announce something like this while they had forces over the border inside of Gaza itself.
It really is interesting that they did make this public, and you said very clearly that we don't know what the mission is right now. I mean, you would think it might be twofold. One is to try to get hostages. Another is that they located some of the terrorists or some of the higher-ranking officials in Hamas they are looking for. But what does it tell you that we know this information right now?
There's another thing to add to that mix of what it might be as well. It might be going in to recover bodies. It might be going in to recover soldiers who died over the weekend and have been on the other side of the fence. It could be as simple as that. But what it speaks to, is that Israel is more and more on a footing where it can go into this very dangerous area for troops and be ready to protect itself and carry out a mission. And it's indicative that there will be more missions like this to come. I think until we get the details of precisely what it was, if it was more than just, let's say, a body recovery, then that will tell us that they're really on a forward footing at the moment.
Thank you so much for that, Nick. I want to bring back Colonel Cedric Leighton, who will hopefully continue to give us a bit of perspective on what Nick just reported. What are your thoughts?
So, Dana, the key indicator here is that this was a series of small raids, and every single one of the options you talked about, possibly a hostage recovery mission, possibly the business about going after senior leadership of Hamas, and or the recovery of the remains of dead Israeli soldiers. All of those are possibilities. I am thinking it's either number one or two at this point. In essence, what they're looking for would be a perfect thing for Israeli intelligence to recover its lost luster in the wake of the debacle on the strategic front. If they have a good tactical intelligence success where their special operations forces come in and they actually have a successful mission. Of course, we don't know yet whether or not the mission has been successful. We have no idea, what the actual targets were, but it seems as if this is the kind of mission where special operations forces would go in and have very finite targets that would go in, and they would be able to take actions on them and meet limited objectives in that way.
Colonel, I'm just being told in my ear that the IDF says that they were, in fact, searching for hostages as part of this raid. We do not know if that was successful. Again, what does that tell you as a former intelligence officer? So
the likelihood is very high that we might be disappointed with the outcome of this, Dana, because of the way in which Hamas operates. But we could see, hopefully, some success, but I don't want to give anybody any false hope at this point in time. It's very early in this. The IDF, if things are successful, at some point the IDF is clearly going to announce that they have of rescued hostages, and of course that would be a big political as well as military victory for the Israelis, and it would also clear the way for further incursions from an operational standpoint on the military side, further incursions of a more conventional nature, if they choose to do them, into Gaza. So that, we're kind of in this environment now. So if this was a hostage rescue mission or trying to find out where the hostages are, that would be a classic special operations mission, and it would be something that would have a high payoff for the Israeli political and military leadership.
More on that breaking news into CNN. The Israeli Defense Forces say that they have carried out some raids in the Gaza Strip. They say that they are searching for hostages. I want to bring in Matthew Chance, who is across this story following the developments, reporting today from Tel Aviv. Matthew, what do we know?
Well, we're all bracing, of course, for the, I'm getting it coming back in my ear here. We're all bracing for the possibility of a large-scale Israeli invasion by land into the Gaza Strip. But of course, we have to remember that complicating that military operation is the fact that there are between 100 and 150 Israeli hostages that have been hidden by Hamas militants after they were seized inside Israel, all across that territory. And I think what we're seeing now, according to the IDF, small, limited incursions into the Gaza Strip with the express purpose of, first of all, trying to neutralize terrorist locations is the first thing to say, but also to try and locate the whereabouts of some of those hostages. In fact, the newly appointed hostage affairs coordinator here in Israel gave me a statement earlier saying that they were doing everything they could on every level to try and search every area of ground to try and find where these people are, where the people are located. And so I think this is a part of it. But to be clear, it is not, we don't think, the beginning of the large-scale land invasion that everybody's braced for. But again, to reiterate, when that happens, the presence of those captives in the Gaza Strip is something that the military planners are going to have to take into account. Already, Hamas militants say that as a result of the ferocious airstrikes that have been pounding areas of the Gaza Strip for the past several days, at least 13 of the hostages they took have been killed. That's not been corroborated by the Israelis or by the United States, but it does underline what a precarious situation that the military planners are, and we all are currently involved in. Becky.
Yeah, and diplomatic sources had told me earlier in the week, and confirmed now by the Prime Minister of Qatar, speaking alongside the US Secretary of State today, saying that there are efforts that they are mediating between Israel and Hamas to try and effort the release of those hostages. Earlier on in the week, we were told the efforts are around an exchange of hostages, women and children, Israeli women and children in Gaza for women and youth in prisons in Israel. So we know that is ongoing. We also know that the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who's been in Jordan and is now in the Gulf doing the rounds, trying to ensure that there is some sort of humanitarian corridor set up for and some sort of safe zones set up for these Gazans. We just spoke to the Jordanian foreign minister, who said, that Gazans need to stay within the country as far as Jordan is concerned, within the enclave as far as Jordan is concerned. They don't want to see the spillage of Gazans outside of the enclave. But clearly, as they are told by the IDF to move from northern Gaza, one assumes, because there is this imminent assault by ground and air forthcoming, the IDF trying to ensure that Gazans are evacuated out of the way. Hamas, of course, telling Gazans to stay in place. There is an awful lot going on. The Secretary of State not only looking at the humanitarian corridors and the hostage issue, also speaking to the Israelis and the region about how to de-escalate what is going on, both in the short term, in the hours to come, and trying to ensure that this conflict, what is going on here now in Israel and in Gaza, does not spill outside of these borders.